Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Uh-huh. So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
Fairview's coffee has mysteriously gone missing. Mayhem ensues when strange, coffee-craving zombies plague the city. Detective Mickey Potatoes, an overworked public servant, uncovers why ordinary citizens are losing their minds and how to stop the coffee apocalypse. But it involves the mafia. And when you're dealing with mafia crime families, nothing is ever easy. The mafia controls everything in the city, including the police, including him. If he breaks the mafia, they will break him. So, the city is without coffee. The city is burning before his very eyes, but he's powerless. Detective Potatoes has the power to stop the coffee apocalypse, but if he does, he could lose everything.
First world, come in and take a seat. Pay us no attention, it's all conspiracy. We have satire and parody, some funny, some perverse. If none of it's offensive to you, you'd be the first.
Gin joints in all the towns in all the world. She walks into mine.
It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal.
I knew I should have taken that left turn at Albuquerque.
And now for something completely different.
And welcome back to another episode of Reality and Publishing Comics with me, Paul Gomez. Thank you all for joining me this week. And again, I really made this show to introduce new creators or talk to creators that were having trouble getting into the industry. Might have a few bumps and bruises on the way, but this is one of those things to kind of help you get along, and hopefully you don't make the same mistakes that I did. And having said that, we've got a very special guest this week. That's Madeleine Rosing Holly. Is that correct?
Holly
Holly
Rosing.
Rosing. Okay,
Holly
sorry,
Rosing.
I got it the other way around. But I really made this show to talk to new creators, especially getting on Kickstarter and stuff. And you literally wrote the book on getting into Kickstarter, how to do it and whatnot. Can you talk to us about that?
Sure. Well, now I've done, this is my 12th campaign that's going on right now. But when I was on my 4th or 5th, I had learned a lot of hard lessons by then.
Right.
And I saw some awesome things on Kickstarter, just tremendous art and books and stories. And they weren't getting any traction, and they were just doing the crash and burn. And I saw they were making some pretty fundamental mistakes before they even launched. So I wrote a book called Kickstarter for the Independent Creator. It's in its 2nd edition now. It's the one with the green cover, not the brown cover. Green. Always think green cover. And I updated it in 2020. I need to update it again. It's just that's something that's on the back burner. But it does still cover all the basic strategies for running a Kickstarter campaign, and it is focused on comics, though the strategies work for any
Other
creative thing you have. Yeah.
And the thing that I found, because I did a lot of research before going into my first campaign. Of course, I didn't really grow my fan base, or I kind of jumped into it blindly because I guess I was doing, I got into comics by mistake, if you will. It was a home project for me and my kids, and it just kind of started taking steps that led to me making a few dollars out of it. So let me ask you this, having made that book and the evolution and updating it from then to now, do you think it's changed drastically, just subtly? I mean, how much has it changed?
I don't think it's really. I'm shutting off phones here. I forgot to pull up. Be quiet. Yes. Block that call. It has evolved in that backer expectations have increased.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Back in the early days, like 2012, 2013, it was, shiny and new. So basically anything you throw up on the wall and it's stuck, you were probably going to get backers. And then over time, backers learned that sometimes they could get burned. Yeah. That you had to do your research on the creators as well to make sure that they had a track record, or even if they were brand new, it was something small enough that you could believe that, okay, they can finish this project, or maybe it's almost already done, which I would recommend, particularly in comics, self-fund your first issue so it's ready to go when you kickstart it. So, it's just for printing costs.
Yes.
And deliver it on time. And that way you set up a track record.
Yes. Having started mine out, it really was that way as well. We had started the funding and I pretty much had the project done. So I was doing that first Kickstarter just for the printing. And I tell the new creators, I'm like, you never know how you're going to do on your Kickstarter. So don't have high expectations at first go around. You are building your fan base and you're getting to learn everything, especially if you're not doing as much research into it. You shouldn't expect that much. I think I tell most of them, one of the biggest things nowadays, and again, I've only been in it about a year or so, is to be able to get on shows and digital media and understanding that, because that was my biggest unknown, if you will. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, I use a myriad of avenues to get the word out. And one is obviously social media. I just pretty much focus on two Facebook and Twitter, because I don't have time to do more. I do a little bit on Instagram, but that's not my mainstay.
Right.
I'm not on TikTok. I don't have the bandwidth to do that many, and most people don't. Getting on shows like yours, you need to reach out to people, and over the years, I've built up a group of podcasts. Some have fallen by the wayside because they've gone on to bigger and better, and so I keep updating my own list of podcasts, and about 6 weeks out before I launch, I start sending little either emails or contact through Facebook, and I introduce myself, say this is, very tight little message. This is who I am. You saw my message. It's like, hi, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. I love to be on your show. Can we talk? If you're interested.
Yeah.
And no worries. And no worries if you can't.
Right.
No harm, no foul.
and one of the things to get on shows, you really got to be, comfortable with it. So there can be that flowing conversation. I try to tell people to do a small press release, even though it's, doesn't exactly have to be particular, as long as you're putting the title of what you're doing, maybe a little blog about what it is, and then information about you and the team. It helps, the host understand what you're going to come on and talk about if y'all don't get time to talk that much. I have been seeing you around the circuit quite a bit, and I think you've been doing an amazing job. Of course, I mean, you have been in the business for a while. Can we talk about your longevity?
Sure. I have an added advantage in that in another life, I was a marketing director. So I do understand the concept of a press kit, even though a press kit now looks very different than what it did 15, 20 years ago. Everything was hard copies, and now it's all electronic. You have an electronic press kit. And for a comic creator, that will include a press release. And you can see how those are done you just Google how to write a press release, and something simple, doesn't have to be fancy. And, bios on you and your team, your cover art, some panels, pretty pictures, show them pretty pictures so they can put up on the screen while you're talking. And it also introduces them to you and gives them a sense that you actually know what you're doing.
But like I said, I mean, you've been in the business for a good amount of time. How long have you been in it?
I was reminded last year that 10 years.
Wow.
10 years.
Congratulations.
Has been out in the world. And that's so this amazing. Would be obviously number 11. If you'd asked me, 15 years ago, this is what I'd be doing, I'd be going like, nah, no.
So having said that, whenever you started that first year, what did you have big goals? I mean, was it a hobby?
It was very different. Boston Metaphysical started out as a TV pilot that I wrote while I was at UCLA Film School.
Right.
And it made the rounds. Was generally well received. People like, the whole concept, but steampunk hadn't made the mainstream. Right. It was expensive to make. People didn't know what to do with it. So it was suggested that I turn it into a graphic novel and then sell it back to Hollywood. Because no one actually likes to read words, but they like to look at pretty pictures. And a funny thing happened during this journey. I discovered I really enjoyed writing comics, and I love being in the independent creator community. And so I unwittingly became a Kickstarter expert because of suffering through so many campaigns. And failing the first one. I mean, most of us do fail the first one, but you learn from that, you regroup, and you're off to the races again.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's one thing to jump into it and have certain goals, and one thing to jump into it and just drop those expectations as well. Like I said, I just started about a year ago, and I had so much turmoil whenever I jumped in. That's the main reason I started the show. I wanted to help as many people out. Mm-hmm. What was the biggest hurdle that you had starting out or throughout your career, if you will?
Well, I guess you need to be a little more specific. Are you talking about with Kickstarters or
Yes.
with writing comics or with Kickstarter?
Well, let's go with Kickstarters.
Okay, let's start with Kickstarter. Well, initially, I had thought I had done the research necessary, and we started as a webcomic.
Mm-hmm.
So based on the viewership that I was getting online, I thought that even if, say, 10 to 20% of those folks pledged, it would get us halfway there. You have to understand that at the time, what I was trying to do, we had self-funded the first 3 issues, and we were looking to fund the next 3 issues plus go to trade. So it was about $25,000, and right. Which at the time was a reasonable amount for, 3 additional issues plus printing and sent, all of that. It was pretty obvious, like about 2.5 weeks in, that we weren't going to make it. But what we did learn by the end of the campaign, that, well, we had over 200 backers and we'd made over $7,000. So historically, we could see what we were capable of getting. Right. So what we did is that instead of trying to do it all at once, which was the most efficient way of doing it, and the least expensive for everybody, we broke it up into smaller parts. And since I already had issue 3 done, I said, oh, this is to print issue 3. So we lowered it to like $3,000, and we were fully funded in 24 hours.
That's awesome.
But what was really important is that I actually canceled the campaign a day or 2 before it ended, because, once you start seeing people drop, right. You can't communicate through Kickstarter to them. If your campaign fails, you don't get people's emails, but you can communicate to them through Kickstarter messaging.
Right.
But I also ask people to say, hey, I'm starting this little email list. When we launch again, I can let you know. And I won't, it's just going to be about the Kickstarter, nothing else.
Right.
And so that was the beginning of my email list, was from there. And then I just built on it through additional campaigns and through cons and things like that. But that email list is critical for, just starting off with a very, very strong campaign.
Now, Boston Metaphysical, this is the book that you wrote. Have you thought about writing any other books? I mean, you've got several spin-offs, if you will. Is that correct?
Well, it's not spin-offs so much as standalone sequels. Right. There's the original 6-issue miniseries. And for those of your audience who have never heard of Boston Metaphysical before, it's about an ex-Pinkerton detective, a spirit photographer, and a genius scientist who battled supernatural forces in late 1800s Boston. And as I was mentioning, we started with a 6-issue miniseries, which we compiled into what we call Volume 1 now. And then I did 4 standalone sequels, which are now all in what we call Volume 2. And we're currently kickstarting a new Boston Metaphysical series called Mystery at Pikes Peak. It's a 4-issue miniseries, and this is to print issues 1 and 2.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, the longevity that you've had from this project and the unique ways that you've done it. You've also done some, is it prequels of it as well?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah, I have an audio drama prequel, which is a full cast, special effects, original music. It's like your old time radio drama.
Right.
That takes place. That story is a standalone. It's called The Ghost Ship. Yes. It's available as a CD or download within the Kickstarter, but it takes place in the time period of the original 6-issue miniseries. I have a prequel novel and an anthology of short stories and novellas, which are also prequels. So there's prose, audio drama, and graphic novel.
That's so amazing how much stuff that you've done for this one world that you've created. Now, do you add these side items like the audio drama and the novels onto your Kickstarters, or are they Kickstarters because I hadn't seen all your Kickstarters. were they different ones, or?
I did a Kickstarter for the audio drama.
Right.
I never did one for the novel or the anthology, but both are part of every Kickstarter. That's so awesome. You can get signed copies from me. And so yeah, I mean, pretty much everything we have is on the Kickstarter. So as far as things you can read or listen to, you know, story wise, and plus we do have some really cool lapel pins. I do a new lapel pin every Kickstarter because that's just a thing now because people collect them.
Yes.
And this one is of a Tesla coil, which Alejandro Lee designed, and also we're almost to the stretch goal to upgrade our metal bookmark of Tesla's experimental station to a copper finish, which is really cool. We've done these bookmarks before and they look amazing.
Now, I think all these items are a great thing to do, especially whenever you're going into Kickstarters, because it helps get those people not only who collect like the pins, but the bookmarkers and cards and stuff. Do you do special tiers? Like I've always told new creators to think about doing a 24-hour tier at the beginning or something special in the middle to kind of boost up that platform area, if you will. Do you do anything special like that?
Yeah, actually, a lot of things about this particular Kickstarter are new, but one is I did an early bird special the first 48 hours. So clearly that's over.
Right. But again, this is to inform new creators too.
Yeah. We did that for the first 48 hours. And then about mid-campaign, we added on a new add-on of a set of 3 metal bookmarks of their dirigibles, one in stainless steel, bronze, and copper finish.
That's awesome.
That you can add on. So, you know, we've accidentally created another collectible.
Right.
It's like, okay, we did this. I can see where this is going for the next Kickstarter. We'll do the same thing for the experimental station and do something else. But yeah, and we do magnets too.
Yes.
Because those are just fun.
Yeah, definitely. And like I say, you know, I tell new creators to always look out for this. But if you haven't been on this Kickstarter yet, here are the stuff that you're going to get. And her next campaign, you're going to be looking for those early bird specials. But I mean, all these collectible things. If you love bookmarks, if you love those pins, make sure to check out this Kickstarter. This is some great stuff from a person who definitely knows what they're doing. And whenever you're starting a Kickstarter, this is a great Kickstarter to look at to kind of guide you along the way.
Yeah, those are our main covers by Angela Wu. And we're also doing variant covers for the first time. I know a lot of other people have done it. Of course, that's interior pages to show what we're doing. Elizabeth and Katie, actually. And that's the cover for Volume 1, which contains our original 6-issue miniseries with a cover by Roberta Ingranata. She does Doctor Who for Titan Comics, by the way.
Oh, that's awesome.
That is the cover for Volume 2, which contains our standalone 4 sequels, plus bonus stories. Each of those have bonus stories as well.
And this is the first time you're doing variants?
Yeah, first time we're doing variants.
Wow.
Thought I'd dip my toe into that. And yeah, that's by Rio Burton. And that one is by Steph C. And we're also doing metal. Very limited, only 25, and I believe more than half are gone.
Wow, only 25.
Yeah, that's it. I'm just doing 25. Awesome. And that's the cover for our audio drama, The Ghost Ship, with art by Gwen Tavares. Gwen did the art for all the standalone sequels.
That is amazing. Now, do you try to keep everything as add-ons just in case they get a tier? They just want 1 or 2 other things. How does that work?
This is actually the first time I've done add-ons through Kickstarter, and the reason being is that when they first started the whole concept of add-ons, I talked to a number of other creators who were using it at the time, and let's just say I understand the back end administration was not user friendly.
Right.
And I don't like to be the beta. So I waited a year or two, and I thought, okay, it's, backer expectations are such that now they're expecting add-ons, and so let's give them a limited amount of add-ons, and then I'll go to backer kit or something like backer kit when we're closer to shipping, and sending out the surveys, and then I'll be able to add on more there.
Right.
For there's always I have a lot of fun stuff. I've got inventory.
And I mean, with this stuff, I can imagine it's such great items. And since you've been in the business, I can imagine that it's been sought after as well. Now you've been published. Is that correct?
Yes. Source Point Press picked up the original 6-issue miniseries and the sequels in 2019, 2020, and they've all gone through previews and run that rotation.
Right.
So yeah, they've been great. I love everybody over there.
That's awesome. I mean, it's great to see that there's a project that started out on Kickstarter that's been doing so well, that's got picked up, and you're still in the indie industry, putting this stuff out. That's an amazing thing to see, because that's kind of, I guess, my hopes for the future. Like I said, I just started out this year, but have you ever thought of doing any other titles? Is this the only title you're ever going to do? How's that work?
Oh, I have so many things on the back burner. and it's a matter of time.
Right.
Because this is my business now. And so you got to take care of the business end to make sure everything else functions. But yeah, what I do, a couple things. I've done a number of anthologies, and that's been a lot of fun, because those are small. Those are like 6 pages or something, so I can sneak those in between what I'm doing. And I did finish a 4-issue miniseries for Lady Mechanica. Mm-hmm. And Joe Benitez is currently working on the art for issue 1, and that was loads of fun. That was Marcia Chen and Joe Benitez. They're wonderful people and absolutely a joy to work with and to work for. So it was just, it's I don't know if you've read Lady Mechanica, but I didn't read it for a long time, particularly while I was developing Boston Metaphysical, because I didn't want it to accidentally influence.
Oh, yeah.
But when Marcia came to me to possibly write a series for them, I said, okay, well, I need to read all your back issues. And don't take offense. I said, don't take offense. There was a reason why I didn't read it. And they're so different that there's no way you're not gonna mistake one for the other.
Right.
But yeah, it was great to read them. And so yeah, I am doing other stuff, but it's usually more quiet and will be for other people. But yeah, there's some other things I want to do, but also the Boston Metaphysical universe is just so huge,
right,
that there'll be supporting characters that I'll get an idea about, and I just want to go run with them. And I introduced a new character in Mystery at Pikes Peak because I wanted to show that there were other political entities within this alternate universe, alternate history that I had developed, that came from other parts of the country, because primarily they had been on the East Coast for the first 10 issues, and now I'm moving them to the West. And it took me out of my comfort zone, and it took my characters out of their comfort zone. So it's been a lot of fun.
So this the story has gone a long way, and you've done so much with it. I've always heard of a debate of saying, you should write the current issue and then wait to write the next issue later, or you should just write as much as you can to have that kind of stuff there, that story like complete. But the ones that say that you should write, for today, say that your writing gets better, a year or two down the road, so your next issue would get better if you waited. Where do you fall on that kind of thing? Did you write this stuff 10 years ago and just filling it out, or are you writing it as you go?
Well, the original 6 issues I wrote 10 years ago, and I wrote those. I didn't write them all at once. There was some space definitely between the original 6 issues, and then obviously there was a 5 or 6 year space between those and the first standalone, which is Scourge of the Mechanical Men. So, which is very different in style than the rest, just because of 2 characters I had in there, because they spoke it was 2 twins and they basically finished each other's sentences. So it was a very different dialogue dynamic.
Right.
And it made my letterer a little crazy. Sorry, Troy. But no, that's right. As you continue, you should be getting better. And but no, all of these, Mystery at Pikes Peak is written. All 4 issues are done, in theory. But as far as scripting of panels and action and whatever, but I go back as art comes in and change dialogue, move dialogue, because sometimes the art demands, okay, there's not enough space here, I need to change this here. Things aren't, or I just change my mind and I change it. So I do a lot of rewriting as the art comes in, and then when the art is finished for an issue, I go and do I do a couple final passes before it goes to Troy. I try to have it almost as humanly perfect as it can be before it goes to him. But as we all know, perfect is the enemy of good enough.
Right.
At some point, you need to let it go, and it's like, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
We need to move on.
Yeah, whenever I first came into it, I figured I was just going to write a script and I was going to be done after, a week or so, or however long it took to write that script. Whenever
Not just the first draft.
Right. Well, I thought it was going to be. That's the way I thought it was going to be.
No.
And I try to tell new creators, that's not the way it ever is. You finish that first draft, but you're always writing, correcting, or changing, especially whenever you go through the editing process. And then whenever the art comes in, you have to make sure that it's correct. So
definitely.
As a writer, it doesn't stop right then at that first draft.
Oh no, that's just your blueprint.
Right.
And then I go in and make changes, and then it's all pretty much done. And then, sometimes every once in a while there's a question from the artist, and I'll go like, you're right. Ignore that, add that, we have a conversation. It doesn't happen very often.
Right.
I'm usually pretty clear in my scripts, but every once in a while, things go.
Yeah, no. And
somewhere else.
The funny thing about it is I just started about a year ago, but I put out 4 books, and there was one time where my artist kind of went off script. I saw the roughs and I'm like, wait a minute, that's not what I wrote. And they're like, well, I can't exactly draw what you wrote. And I'm like, oh. So then you kind of got to play editor, if you will, and go make sure your story doesn't change with the editing as it is.
Oh yeah. Obviously the threads have to remain.
Right.
But what I always encourage my artists and my colorists to do is that you ever have a question, if you don't understand something, just ask me. I will be happy to have this conversation with you. And if it's something I screwed up, I'll fix it.
Right. I always say, whenever you get into comic creating, it's not exactly about just creating. It's mainly about problem solving, because as long as you're understanding the problems and as long as you're communicating with your artists, you can get through everything and make that book the way you want to. And I love my artists, love them to death. And so whenever they make changes or they want to talk about something, I'm like, just message me, text me, call me, let's talk it through. And I love your art. Can we talk about the artists that you choose and how you choose them?
Sure. I mean, for the current mystery at Pikes Peak, it's Elizabeth McKedza doing the line art, interior art, and Katie Brown is the colorist. And I actually went through a few other artists before Elizabeth. And even though because I keep a list and I go through portfolios, and I really go through them, because I'm not even sure I could tell you what I'm looking for.
Right.
I just know when I see it that I believe that they can capture Boston metaphysical.
Right.
And it's not to say that other people I've passed on are bad. They're not.
Right.
They're fabulous. But they don't quite capture what we're about. And so it's a thing, but a couple people I talked to weren't going to be ready till 2024, or I can't wait that long.
Right.
And lucky for me, I kept coming back to Elizabeth and back to Elizabeth, and I'm just going to contact her and see what her availability is. And she was, and we chatted, and I talked to some people who'd worked with her before, had, fabulous references, and we were off to the races.
I think that's amazing. And it's one of those questions that I get often, whether I'm at a con or at a store signing. They're like, so you're the writer and you're not the artist. And they're like, it seems like they're a little disappointed. And I tell them, I'm not just the writer, I'm the project manager, and I'm the person that put it together. I had to make sure that I went and found the art that was correct for the story. And you're
not just the writer, you're the creator.
Right.
And it wouldn't exist without you.
Right.
I always tell people, obviously the artist is important.
Oh yeah.
The art is what draws people in, but it's a story that makes them stay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
it's so important to have great art, great covering, great lettering. People forget how important lettering is. That lettering can actually be a character in your book.
Yes. I mean, I tell people all the time, letterers and editors are the unsung heroes. My letterer, McLean McGuire, he's amazing. I suffer from dyslexia, and my kids do as well. And the main reason that I got into comics were because of my kids. Mm-hmm. So whenever I was looking for a letterer, I wanted to make sure that it wasn't hard for us to read, because some of them
Makes
are.
Sense. Yeah.
And there's a science in it whenever it comes to, a little bit difficulty to reading. So I can't say that enough. Lettering, editing are the unsung heroes of comics, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I do have, I have beta readers.
Right.
For initial drafts, and which, they're my unsung heroes. Actually, I thank them in the beginning of every book. And I technically don't have an editor. I am the editor, but I do go through things so much and so many times that it usually is fine.
Right. Yeah, I tell people, especially with my dyslexia, that one of the first things that I did was went to get an editor, because I knew that was one of my weaknesses, like doubling words up.
Yeah.
Or misspelling them. Even though I knew what I was writing, it was always one of those things of there might be letters that were jumbled up. And that was one of the main reasons I always feel like I need an editor behind me because of that. As far as
you have
stuff,
to, you have to recognize your weaknesses, and then there's clearly it's just smart.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And again, this is one of the things I tell new creators. Not everybody's strong at everything.
No.
You might not have an eye for art, which I don't think I have a great eye. I think I have a decent one. So I've got an artist who's my best friend that I go to whenever I have a question. I've got my editor that I go to whenever there's something that I can't see being spelled correctly, and I take it to him, and I'm like, look, this is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, again, it's problem solving. And as long as you go into creating comics knowing that, I feel you can make the best product you can. And you've done an amazing job for tons of years already. I mean, congratulations. Now, before we go on, I really like to talk about your accomplishments, your awards. You've been awarded so many times. Can we talk about that?
Sure, if you want.
I mean, I think this is great because new creators should understand, if you have that persistency, if you have that determination, they can aspire to be like you.
I always think that's funny, but no, there was some. Well, I was at UCLA Film School. For those who aren't familiar, I won the Sloan Fellowship, and that is for a script that depicts scientists or engineers as real people and not caricatures, and that the science within the script is accurate. And I did a biopic called Stargazer, about Mina Fleming, who was a Scottish American woman who arrived in this country essentially pregnant, penniless, and soon abandoned by her husband. She got a job at the Harvard Observatory, in the house of the director of the Harvard Observatory, as a maid. He recognized her attention to detail and hired her as one of what they were called at the time female computers. Basically, they poured over data and glass plates of images of stars and to try to collect data on stars. And she ended up developing a stellar classification system, not the one we use today. It was a different one. And discovering over 10,000 stars. So yeah, that was that. And there were a few others at UCLA. And then when I was a part of Women in Film, I wrote and co-produced a PSA for the California Black Women's Health Project, which won, I think, a bronze Telly and a gold Aurora. I'd have to go look.
Yes.
I don't remember.
Yes.
And fabulous team on that. Women in Film is a great organization. I highly recommend it. And I know we did a great job. If you go to the website, not the Women in Film, but the California Black Women's Health Organization, the PSA is still up.
Yeah,
they still run it.
And like I said, I mean, you've accomplished so much over 10 years in comics right here. I like to ask all my guests, you've seen where you've been. Do you see where you're going? I mean, what's next for you?
I think it depends on how tired I am. Obviously, this will be finished, Mystery of Pikes Peak. And hopefully by, the end of this year. My hope is, it really depends on Elizabeth and how far she is. If she's done with 3 and into 4, I'll probably run a Kickstarter in like October for issues 3 and 4. And there'll probably be at least one series after that, just because I have an idea of what I want to do for that. After that point, I'm not really sure. There is a trilogy of novels that are prequels to the graphic novel. I've written the first one. They take place about 35 years prior to the original series. And it's called The House Wars, and it's the Boston metaphysical equivalent of the American Civil War. And obviously our favorite heroes will not be part of that because some of them haven't even been born yet.
Right. But that sounds awesome.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
it
I want to
does.
finish that and probably one more series and in this, and then it might be time to start refocusing my energies to another project that, there's a couple projects, both prose and graphic novel that are have been on the back burner for quite a while.
Right. I definitely can understand that. So I'm again, the show really talks to new creators. What advice would you give them if they're just starting out today?
Well, one, have patience. You're very lucky now in that when I started, there wasn't a lot of places where you could go to get complete information on running a Kickstarter, and now there are many places where you can. Obviously there's my book.
Yes.
Russell Nolte has a Kickstarter accelerator program. Tyler James has Comics Launch. I mean, that's fantastic.
Yes.
And I always learn something from these guys all the time, and I look at their campaigns and think about doing new stuff and how they do it and the logistics of it all. So you don't have to go flailing about for information. There's very concrete places where you can go to get good information. Study successful Kickstarters and unsuccessful ones.
Yes.
So you can tell the difference between the two
And
of why they didn't work. And sometimes you won't necessarily be able to tell because so much of it happens prior to launch. Like, do you have your email list? Do you, have you set up proper promotion, social media, podcasts?
Yeah.
I mean, all of that, a press kit. Sometimes it's hard, you can't see what people are doing behind the scenes. I mean, if you're brand new to comics and don't know how to write comics, go take a class.
Yes. Ask people. The best thing I always tell people is ask. And if you can't find someone to ask, go to YouTube and go to Google. This is what I did before I started. I took a few months. I went and got an editor. I asked him a lot of questions. He pinpointed the stuff that I needed to study. And the main thing was in the background while I was studying all this stuff, I had YouTube on. I had all these shows that were talking about how they were preparing their Kickstarters and what they were doing. It's just always amazing to see these Kickstarters. Like I said, go look at her Kickstarter. Of course, back it. Definitely back it. But if not, just learn from how she set it up and how other Kickstarters are. I say go to at least 50 Kickstarters before you run your first one, just to see what they're doing. Failed or not, you can get ideas of what to offer on tiers, how to put it down there. And again, if you have any questions, come to somebody who's running a Kickstarter. Most of the time, they'll be glad to help. I'm definitely glad to help. So you can always reach me on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter on Paul Gomez 790. You have any questions, let me know. And before we go, once again, can we talk about Boston Metaphysical? If no one's ever seen this great project, can you explain it one more time?
Sure. The basic premise is about an ex-Pinkerton detective, a spirit photographer, and a genius scientist who battles supernatural forces in late 1800s Boston. It's been a continuing series for the past 10 years. The Kickstarter not only offers all of that material, Volume 1 and Volume 2, in both digital and physical form. So it'll be, we have digital packages that are very affordable. So you can pick everything up. Mystery at Pikes Peak is our new series, and this is to print issues 1 and 2. And we have some very cool items and stretch goals we've already reached. Everyone who's backed already gets 12 additional indie comics, digital comics. Those who've backed to a physical level not only get that, but we'll be getting the magnets and the metal bookmark. So we have only 8 days to go, and some of the reward tiers are limited, so you need to get on it now.
Today, not the last minute, today. Make sure you go check it out. Like I said, if nothing else, just to see this project, but definitely go back. It's an amazing project. Where can they reach you? How would you like any social media for them to go to other than obviously the Kickstarter?
There's a Kickstarter. There's also my website is you can type in bostonmetaphysicalsociety.com or queenofmercia.com. They're both the same. Queen of Mercia is just my corporate name. They all go to my website. And as I say, Pops has it up there, Queen of Mercia. On Twitter, I'm M. Holly Rosing. On Facebook, it's Boston Metaphysical Society Comic. And on Instagram, it's MC Holly1.
I've got to say that it's been a great pleasure having you on. I think you're doing an amazing job. Obviously, you're a trendsetter, if nothing else. I mean, because you've been in it so long. I want to thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me on the show, Paul. I really appreciate it. And I think Pops is going to play the video.
Paul Gomez 790, if you need any help.
Hi, my name is Madeleine Holly Rosing, and I'm the writer-creator of the steampunk supernatural series, Boston Metaphysical Society. Welcome to our Kickstarter to print issues 1 and 2 of our brand new 4-issue miniseries, Mystery at Pike's Peak. If you're not familiar with the series, it's about an ex-Pinkerton detective, a spirit photographer, and a genius scientist who battles supernatural forces in late 1800s Boston. Our new story begins as our team flees the law in Boston and arrives at the only safe haven they can find, Tesla's experimental station in Colorado Springs. There they meet Tesla's unlikely partner, Mai Wee Chow, a scientist from the Great House Chow in California. But their stay becomes more complicated when an attempt is made on Tesla's life, and Caitlin's visions resurface in an unexpected way. Now the team find themselves caught in a web of intrigue and murder. I'm also happy to announce that we have a new artist on board by the name of Elizabeth Makedza, with coloring by Katie Brown and cover art by Angela Wu. And for the first time ever, we'll be offering variant covers by Rio Burton and Steph C. If you're new to the series, don't worry, as Volume 1 and 2 will be available in both print and digital versions. We'll also have a brand new lapel pin depicting the Tesla coil and special limited reward tiers, which include our audio drama, The Ghost Ship. The best part is that the first issue is done and the art for issue 2 is halfway completed. So please be sure to check out all of the reward tiers and pledge today. Thank you in advance for your support.
All right. And I think that's going to do it this week, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me on the show, Paul. I really appreciate it.
fight as long as I'm alive. I'm a dead man walking. I'm a dead man walking. Till I die. And kill till I...
Revenge, the sweetest morsel to the mouth that ever was cooked in hell.
America's southern border has become a war zone. Human traffickers, drug smugglers, and terrorists flow across the Rio Grande with impunity, secure in the knowledge that no one will stop them. A distant federal government lectures Americans on their privilege while punishing overworked border patrol agents who were helpless to stem the tidal wave of invaders and determined migrants. Second-generation Cuban-American Marcos Zamora is a military vet, more patriotic than most Americans. No longer able to ignore the chaos at his doorstep, he acts. Joined by his best friend Gus, they hit the border every night, saving lives while stopping violent drug cartels and other opportunists. The government reacts with fury at Marco's attempts to preserve American sovereignty, deploying the full might of their enforcement agencies. But Marcos understands that the only thing the rich and powerful fear is bad publicity, and he records every encounter. Whoever he is, this private American must be stopped. Illustrated by Richard Bonk and written by Eisner winner Mike Barron, Private American is his version of Captain America, and maybe a little Punisher, taking part in this ongoing, violent, and very real battle of good versus evil in the war for American sovereignty. Grab your copy at theprivateamerican.com.
We have a secure border, and that is a priority for our administration.
How do you end this thing? How do you put the where's the brakes on this bus? I forgot.
Jazz
how to do it.
hands. Jazz hands are done.
Comic Books for Kids provides comic books to kids in hospitals and cancer centers across the U.S. It's a place where we can all work together to make sure every child has a comic book. 100% of all proceeds go towards the kids. It's about making a difference, and while they're in the hospital, allowing them to fly like a superhero, battle dragons, or rescue teddy bears. We are in every state in the country and now support over 160 hospitals. Every month, we add